2, 3, 4. Check. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
He's going through something right now. Don't know which way to turn. Yeah, sleepless nights, crying all night long. It's gonna be alright. Jesus, he will fix it. Yeah, whatever it is, he can fix it. Don't worry.
Check. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check.
Ladies and gentlemen, the group fight. And we out.
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. 1. Check. 1, 2.
Can I talk to you? I know you got some questions. What's the hardest thing you
Check. 1, 2.
Let's talk about it.
Talking about mountains, talking about pain, talking about my
Check.
life
1,
when
2.
we change, talking about all things. God can do all things.
Check. 1, 2.
Talking about nights I lose my way and my dreams that have been erased. Talking about all things. I say God can do all things.
I understand.
I know days it won't always be.
Check. 1, 2.
So it's good to know I'll never let you down. Talking about all things.
Check. 1, 2.
Big and the small things.
I'm so sure.
God can do all things.
Check. 1, 2.
Talking about doubts that
Check. 1, 2.
I'm out of funds and I'm out of time. I need a blessing.
Check. 1, 2.
You to do all things.
See, I understand that.
I know days it won't always be.
Check. 1, 2.
Just in case I fall.
So it's good to know I'll never let you down.
Yeah.
Talking about all things.
All things.
All the big and the small things. God can do all things.
Say it again now.
Talking about all things. All the big and the small things.
Let's go.
God can do all things.
Just because he's silent doesn't mean that he's still. He's not only preparing it for you, he's preparing you for it. Let's go.
Talking about all things. All the big and the small things.
Hallelujah.
Talking about doors you've never seen.
Yeah.
Blessings on blessings for you to receive. Talking about all things. All the big and the small things.
He sees you.
Talking about doors you've never seen.
Yes.
Blessings on blessings for you to receive. Talking about all things.
See the blessings coming,
Big and the small things.
but he had to get you ready for it.
Talking about doors you've never seen.
Yes, sir.
Blessings on blessings for you to receive.
What we talking about?
All things.
What we talking about? Come on, say. Say it again now. And my people say. God can do it.
He can do it.
Yes.
Check. 1, 2.
Yes, sir. Nothing is
Check.
impossible.
1, 2. Check.
All things work together. You can't give up now. Hey. What we talking about?
Check. 1, 2.
Hallelujah.
The big and the small things.
God can.
God can do all things.
Check. 1, 2. Check.
I couldn't foresee it, just how high the cost
Sure.
would be. I didn't get it, all that you were
Check.
asking
1, 2.
me. I didn't know
Check. 1, 2.
But I wouldn't trade it. No, I wouldn't trade it.
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. 1. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check.
I'm never
sure that you cry. Only one night though. If you're sad, make sure that you're sad. Only one night though. Stress, make sure that you're stressed. Only one night though. 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 Joy comes in the morning. Joy comes in the morning. Joy comes in the morning. Feel this thing. Joy comes in the morning. Till I can see a brand new day. Brand new day. I can see a brand new day. Looking like a brand new day. I'm waiting for them to get with me. Feeling like a brand new day. I gotta say something to them, y'all. Say, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Looking like a brand new day. Looking like a brand new day. Good morning. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Get up, get up, get up. Good morning. I can see a brand new day. Looking like a brand new day.
All right. I want to say good evening to everyone. Ask that you take your seats, if you will, tonight. And we want to get started because we value your time. The first thing we want to do tonight is start off in prayer. Will you bow your heads with me? Our Lord and our God, we thank you for allowing us to come and have this town hall meeting. We pray that tonight we will get informed. Tonight we will get answers, or we will leave out of here better knowing that our city is very much safe. We thank you tonight for every one of our police officers. We pray that they will continue to do what you have called them to do, and we pray that you will keep them safe and keep them vigilant, keep them alert in all that they do. And we pray tonight, God, that we have a great dialogue. Ask that you will be in the midst of our service tonight. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, tonight, before I introduce the panel, I want to set a few little ground rules. Where there'll be no swearing, no vulgar words tonight. We want everybody to really be mindful of what they say. Be mindful of where you are. We are in the house of the Lord. And we want you to be respectful. And so I believe tonight is going to be a very good night for us. And if you would do me a favor, if you have your phone, you take your phone out, and you can put it on silence, of course, and you can invite all your friends, because we're live. Go to the Winning Church on your Facebook. Go type in the Winning Church, and it will be live tonight. If you will, if you'd like to go back and look at it again, you can go back and capture it after tonight, okay? So if you want to know what you said and you didn't say that and you say you said it, well, we're going to go back and look and see exactly what you said. All right? So with that being said, let me introduce the panel. First of all, we have our chief here, Chief Wayne Fisher. Let's give God praise for him being here tonight. All right. Captain John Clay, the Support Services Commander. Captain Lee Bonostol, Patrol Commander. Did I say it right? Patrol Commander. Captain Billy Stiles, Criminal Investigation Commander. Captain Todd Edwards, Special Operations Commander. Lieutenant Neil Hill, Narcotics Unit. And Sergeant Casey Mullins, Proactive Crime Enforcement Unit. All right, did we get everybody or did I miss somebody? Oh, I'm sorry. Lieutenant Justin Clark in what unit? Criminal Investigation. Let's give God praise for him as well. Okay. I'm sorry, but that's what I got from Captain Clay, so don't, that was not me. I'm gonna put the blame on somebody else. Because I asked him. All right. Like Chief told me, it's kind of like an open forum tonight. So we really gonna ask you if you just be mindful that you don't take up all the time, but if you would kind of limit to maybe right about 3 minutes, they will respond to your questions, and if you need to respond back, we'll give you an opportunity to do that. All right. And if you don't have any questions, well, I got a whole bunch of them that was emailed to me, so we're going to get this thing started, all right? So we have 2 mics, one here and one over there if you want to come up to the mic and ask your question to any one of these gentlemen. I'm sure that they'll be eager to answer your questions concerning Warner Robins, all right? So let's give God praise for our finest in the city today. And everybody don't jump up at the same time, but is there anyone that, I guess, let me do this. I'll start us off with one question so you can kind of see what we're going to do, okay? All right? The first question is, and of course, panel, you can look up at the screen because I got it on the screen for you. What are the biggest challenges you think we're facing at the moment, and what is the plans to address them? And I know that's kind of a broad question, but that's kind of to get you to talking. And you just pick up your mic and you kind of hold it to it because there's a directional mic. So you have to. I think it's already on, Chief.
Okay, thank you. That's a really well thought out question. There are many issues that are facing us in our evolving community that we have. We've got issues with homelessness that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be viewed from a compassionate manner with those that are in need, but also in a manner of establishing a point of maintaining security and peace within the community as well. We have issues with the drug violence that's taken place. We're focused on that, as well as gun violence and the matters that involve our youth. And all of them are, in a lot of cases, intertwined, intermingled, and very complex in nature and scope. We do have plans in place for them, each and individually, and we're working in partnership synergistically within our own agency, external agencies, and non-law enforcement agencies as well. Because in a lot of the issues that we are facing today, though the police department are the first ones to have contacts with a lot of these matters, we are not really the solution set for that. Law enforcement, by design and focus, is, unfortunately, if we want to view it, law enforcement. There's got to be an infraction of the law, which generally drives our purpose into the action points. But the reality is, in a lot of times where we have these violation laws, there's an underlying current that created the situation. And it's through understanding this and looking at it from that perspective that we're trying to identify partners within our community to network with, to work as a collaborative effort to get to the resolution and have a more positive impact within our youth and our community, as well as the aged community as well. You know, we are part of the fabric of the community, and as such is why we brought the command staff and members of the agency, so you can see us, you know who we are, feel comfortable in coming talking to us, and as well, we will get to know you.
Good evening. Sherlyn Johnson, Granville, lifelong resident. I also represent several organizations tonight, specifically REAP Foundation, a nonprofit community organization. But again, thank you, Chief and staff for being here tonight, and thank you, Dr. B and the Winning Church for having this forum. But I wanted to ask, what else can we do to help you? I want to turn it around and say, what can we do to help you? A lot of us involved in a lot of community organizations, a lot of churches, and we fraternities and sororities. I mean, really want to know what more can we do to help you, to help us. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. We are very appreciative of the support that we have within the community, and there's a lot of independent partners, if you will, that are operating within the community doing a lot of great work and good work. The biggest problem we have collectively is communication. And no matter how good of a job we think we're doing, truly, we're failing at communication. So the biggest thing we could have for help is what will be passed out in a little bit on a clipboard. We'll have a QR code, and it's a community impact questionnaire. And on that, it will give you an opportunity to respond to the questions that are there, but it'll also allow for you to have your email address. And I promise you, because we tested it, once you hit send, it comes direct to me. So from that point, we can have an open line of communication and dialogue from that to respond back to, again, the issues that might be presented, and as well our solution sets that we have in the community that we may not be aware of. A lot of times it's understanding what the capabilities are within the support mechanisms within the community. But again, collectively, I think we fail to properly communicate to each other, A, a need, and B, what the solution set options might be. Captain Clay?
Thank you. I think one of the, excuse me, biggest things you can do is think about forming a neighborhood watch. Neighborhood watch is a geographic area where a group of neighbors come together and form a group, and we put up signs that say, you know, you're entering a neighborhood watch, and we come to the meetings and talk about how you can be our eyes, because a lot of times, you know, by the time we get the call, everything's gone. So y'all being eyes for us in the neighborhood, and if you see crime occurring, then you can call it in. A lot of people worry about retaliation. And I tell folks that over the years that I've done it, I've always told them, I said, if you've got crime in your neighborhood, you call me and let me know what the information is, and I'll pass it on to the appropriate unit, like the drug squad. And all I say is, hey, a neighbor called me from this neighborhood who says they think drug activity is going on. And when you call me, I'm going to ask you what leads you to believe that there's drug activity or whatever the crime is. And I'm going to ask you some questions that would kind of lead us to believe, yep, that's probably the crime that's going on. Excuse me. So when you give me that information, like I said, I'll call Lieutenant Hill and say 109 Pinewood Court reportedly has a drug problem. They're dealing drugs. I don't even, when you call me, I don't even write your name down. Now, I may know who you are, and I'll know, but I don't write your name down or record it or anything. So all he knows is that that an anonymous source called in this information. One time over behind the Houston Mall, two neighbors called in, and that was the biggest drug bust we had in the city that year, because they called in and I passed on the information to the appropriate people and appropriate units, and they were able to use that to catch the bad guys. Another thing that we do that you can get to know us is Citizens Police Academy. It's actually going on at the range right now. Citizens Police Academy is a 12-week program. You meet every Thursday night for 12 weeks, and each week we have a different unit come in and explain what they do. Like tonight was supposed to be Captain Van Osdal, the patrol commander, who explained the patrol division, but he's here, so we had to shuffle things around. But you get to ask questions specifically about what does the traffic division do, what does the SWAT team do, what does the criminal investigations do, and you learn how we do our jobs, and that answers a lot of questions. And we have during that time you can go on a ride along. We'll actually get you in a police car and let you ride around and see. Now, we can't let you go in when all the action stuff. You kind of have to stay by the car, stay inside the car. But you can see what it's like for police officers out on the street and actually see what happens in Warner Robins. A lot of times when I used to run the Citizens Police Academy, people would come back after a ride along and their eyes would just be huge and say, I never had any idea that things like that happened in Warner Robins. But the benefit that we get from that, number one, is that officers get to meet people in a social setting, especially with the ride-alongs. Most of our guys, when they answer calls, it's either somebody's being arrested or there's some kind of crisis going on. And so they don't have the time to say, hi, I'm Captain Clay, I'm with the Warner Robins Police Department, tell me about yourself. So doing the ride-alongs and coming to the meetings at Citizens Police Academy and sometimes at Neighborhood Watch, the officers get to know y'all and see that everybody's not a bad guy. There's people out there who appreciate us, and it builds relationships in the community. The other thing is y'all kind of become our ambassadors. If you're at church or at a meeting and somebody says, well, I saw the police do this, why did they do that? Well, you might have the answer to that. And you can say, well, I was at Citizens Police Academy, and this is what I learned, and this is why they do what they do.
Honestly, from the patrol standpoint, one of the best things y'all can do is just be willing to talk to us. A lot of stuff gets solved because people tell us what's going on. Y'all know what's going on in your neighborhoods better than we do. And I'm not saying you've got to rat each other out for the silly stuff, okay, because nobody really is asking you to do that. But when we have a lot of these violent crimes or things that are going on in your neighborhoods, y'all are going to know it before we do. And if we're advised of it, we will try to come and do what we can to address it. It may be just as simple as me getting some more officers in the neighborhood. And feel free to approach my guys when they're out there working. And we can have a conversation that's not because you're in a crisis or you've been a victim of a crime. You know what's going on in your lives, your communities, better than we do, okay? Because sometimes we're outsiders. We come in when we get called, or we're there to answer calls, but we don't know the inner workings of everything going on as well as you do. And not everybody understands what we're doing or why we do what we do. And we just need to have those conversations before the 911 call gets dialed so that we can all get on the same page, hopefully. And we need to do that as well. You know, like the captain said, we need to understand what's going on out there with the community, because it can be very easy to be on this side of it and lose sight of what's going on and only focus on the criminal enforcement. So I'd like to see us open some more dialogues like this, to be honest with you, and just everybody be willing to participate.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Phyllis Patterson. I am a registered voter here in Warner Robins. What I've noticed in watching the television and all the news reports going on, the crimes that are rising in Warner Robins are based on the ages between 12 and 19 years of age, which is really on the rise, and I'm not understanding why. But in the past, I've worked with City Council on certain solutions for those type of individuals. Because there is nothing for them to do, what I suggested is that we implement a lot of different programs with a lot of different business owners, as well as City Council, as well as the churches, for the individuals to have something to do. My question to you is, how do we, as the residents, get something initiated and started with the town of Warner Robins to put those ideas in place to help law enforcement do their job effectively?
So the question that's presented, I can view it in a matter of, we can have a lot of programs that are out there. And the Warner Robins Police Department, as Captain Clay's discussed, community initiatives, we have a lot of programs that exist. But ultimately, the programs are like a life preserver to a drowning person. It's there, but if the person won't grab hold of it and engage with a life preserver, unfortunately, they will still drown. So the answer to the question is, we have, as a community, have to take responsibility to some degrees of the problems that are impacting us and around us, and step up and want to be part of the solution set. We have an active park and recreation department that is focused with creating programs for the youth. You've got Dolores Tolliver Park not too far from here. One of the problem sets we have is there's not a lot of adult participation to be a mentor and a sponsor for the children coming to it. And as I bring the example point, we're a police department of a limited resource number of people. And in that capacity, it's challenging to, again, facilitate a lot of cases, situations where there's a missing family member that is the impactful part to a family to mentor, guide, and direct them. Through that process with the police department, though, we are implementing a public safety cadet program. We've partnered in with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to help facilitate the success of their programs. We're engaged with the Young Marines program as well. So from our impact points, we are engaging with these groups and, again, created our own program. But the end result is going to have to be is the adults, the parents, the aunts, the uncles, the neighbor that sees the child next door that's coming from a broken family without a proper role model, to take a leading role into taking that child by the hand and trying to show a positive role model set and a solution, a better option than what they're seeing through the entertainment industry or their video games, or unfortunately what we're seeing in the news. We collectively have to partner together to create a different set of options for these children. The programs are out there. It's the disconnect on our side, meaning the adults, to engage with the children. If we're not doing that collectively, you can only have a limited impact. So I believe when we all weave together like a thread through a fabric, we'll become a stronger tapestry to create a stronger, more secure community, Warner Robins. But again, through our Parks and Rec Department, the elderly community, through the Wellston Elder Community Center, there's programs out there. We have it within our own churches here. You know, the involvement, you know, it takes the people to want to engage with it. So we'll be active in trying to present the positive atmosphere to get the participation. And again, the question that was asked, you know, how do we do this? Again, I come back to the communication point. If we don't know the point of contact for a particular problem that could be a solution for an engagement, it's kind of hard for us connecting to that aspect. So that's part of what this forum's about. We're hoping to get some more engagement, find out who our partners are. And again, for those partners out there trying to find out who can connect with them, we're here for that. But it takes us as a collective. And again, the city of Warner Robins is very active with the Park and Rec Department. And they need adults to be coaches for these kids for these athletic programs. You know, so it takes us, ma'am, collectively.
Good evening, gentlemen. My question is, I've been in Warner Robins for over 30 years, okay? When I first came here, I saw the police would monitor the neighborhoods. And when I say that, I saw them up and down the streets. I lived on the north side, over off on the north side in the States. You know where the States are, okay? And I've lived on the east side. I've lived over in the apartment areas over there off of Leisure Lake and everything. And when I say I saw the police a lot, because they monitored the neighborhoods before things happen. I don't see a cop riding in a neighborhood at all now. So my question to you all, do you monitor neighborhoods and ride on your streets before the problem happens in the neighborhood? I used to work on Manor Court at a style shop, a barber shop. And we used to work from 7 in the morning, almost 11 o'clock at night. But when shifts changed, you could see the cop at a certain time at 9 o'clock and everything, because when whoever that second shift came around, he would shine the light in there to let you know that he was, you know, checking to see was everything okay, because across the street was a tavern, and there were people drunk, and some people at the across there would be drinking, and they would come outside and everything. And I'm asking that now because I work in a place there at the Kroger Plaza. I've never seen a cop even patrol the grocery store areas or stuff like that. So my question to you, are you still just waiting for something to happen in those neighborhoods, or, you know, as many people rob the Family Dollars and the little convenience stores in the neighborhood? So what are you doing before something happens? You know what I'm saying? And the people feel comfortable because they know in the morning somebody's riding through there, or at night at a certain time when I'm sleeping, the cops are checking the area. That's what I want to know.
First, I want to say thank you for raising that question, ma'am. So I got to Warner Robins back in 1991, so similar to a time frame of about 30 years. And the city of Warner Robins basically went from Watson Boulevard at 247 up to Peacock Drive at Arby's. Went as far south as probably about Fagan Mill. Okay, the population of the city was about 26,000. I want to say the staffing off the top of my head would have been probably about 125 officers. Okay, so the reason why I say this is to frame the response for you. And I will actually give you the hard numbers after the meeting. I don't want to waste time digging through the manual here for you. When you look at the number of officers per square mile back then, and now we're going to come to Warner Robins of today. We're probably about 84,000 people. We're running about 38 square miles. As far south, we go down to Veterans High School. And then as far north, we come up to what people are familiar with, Dunbar Road area. And as far west is going out to the Pilot. And again, the growth and expansion. The number of beat zones that we have has remained the same at 7, and that's been since 2008, I believe. We operate, ideally, we say our minimum staffing on the road for patrol officers to work the road would be 8. With the COVID that hit, and you had the mass migration of employees out from work, and the challenges that law enforcement nationwide has been faced, we have dropped in staffing. And at one point, we were pretty critical, I'm going to say around close to 50, 52 officers short. It was not uncommon for us when we were working a patrol shift that we might have 4 or 5 officers working and we're having to try call officers in. So in part, what I'm trying to frame it for you is the size of the city has significantly grown in territory. So even if we had the same full accomplishment of officers, they're covering greater territory. We've done well of recent and get more officers onboarded. And currently we're sitting probably about 19 to 20 short. So when you discuss the numbers that we were down to what we're up to, it's a good thing. Reality is our staffing numbers need to be stronger so you can have that increased presence. So we use directed patrol assignments. So when we have concerns raised to us from within the community, the officer that has a beat area is given that as an assignment area to pay a focused attention to. But when you have about, at best, 8 officers working a day with 7 beat zones, and a lot of these calls we go to, if it's a domestics requiring 2 officers, I think you can see where there's the attrition of visibility of officers in your given area and neighborhood. And it's an unfortunate byproduct of growth, if you will, and then staffing issues that we're working through. The city has been very progressive, making sure that our pay has been increased, the benefits are increased, the incentives for the officers, we're getting a large flow of folks coming in. And also we've had to go through and look at the situation when you say you have a shortage of staffing, is to review what's going on internally and view what is the current culture we have. And then own, again, like a parent, you've got a problem, take responsibility for it, and start trying to create and formulate a more positive culture internally, which works towards retention issues. So, man, what we're trying to do is slowly increase our workforce numbers up so we can have the increased presence within the community. But in the meantime, what we're doing is you've seen an increase of expansion into technologies. And through these technologies, such as the flock cameras, Fusus, and other technologies that are out there, allows for us to have a presence, although not necessarily physical, in what you're seeing at that time. But we are actively working on it. We're aware of the problems. And again, that's the whole point of some of these forums that we've asked to be part of. Historically speaking, you see us in a situation like this when there's a problem. And we're coming out here because we want to know what your concerns are in the area. And as hearing them such as this, to be able to provide you the realities of what we're working with at the time. But we're working on the staffing. We're working on increasing the presence within the community. But it's going to take an increased number of officers. And in a society where every law enforcement agency is fighting competitively with the other for the numbers of people to come into it, those are a challenge. So the approach we've taken is the viewpoint of if you want a tree to grow, you got to plant a seed. And that's where you're seeing our engagement within the youth and trying to get these youth programs fostered. Because it's these young children that we're dealing with today that we're going to need to want to come into the profession into the future. So we're looking at it in a non-traditional manner in a lot of cases. And we're being very open to input from within the community to get new ideas that might be very beneficial to help in that capacity point. But if people want change in the law enforcement community, want more law enforcement officers, we've got to get the participation again for those people to come into the profession. But we're working on it, ma'am.
Like when they introduced me, I'm the patrol commander, so it breaks my heart if you say you're not seeing the guys and the girls. They are out there, because I can guarantee you they're not at headquarters, and they are assigned directed patrols, and they are instructed to ride the neighborhoods and ride the shopping centers and such. But if you're not seeing them, you know, the old saying that perception is reality, that's your reality. So I've got to find out what exactly is going on, because I know they're out there answering calls, and they're out there in the neighborhoods, they're out in the city. I actually can give you a snapshot of a 24-hour period of time from 6 o'clock in the morning on March 20th, 2 days ago, to 6 o'clock in the morning on the 21st, okay? There's two squads that work. One squad comes in at 6 in the morning, works till 6 in the evening, then they're relieved by the night shift that comes in at 6 in the evening, works till 6 in the morning. These two squads were actually fully staffed both days with 9 officers, okay, for the entire city for those 12-hour periods of time that they're at work. In that 24-hour period of time, they responded to 203 calls. My goodness. Okay? They wrote 54 reports. I don't know how many people they may or may not have arrested, okay? But they are working incredibly hard. I will have to work even harder to instill in them to try to be more visible in the neighborhoods. But a lot of times you're not seeing them because the problem's not where you are. And a lot of times we're kind of reactive, kind of like the immune system in your body. We react to where the problem is first, and then we try to be out doing other things when we can. And honestly, COVID took a toll on a lot of the more proactive stuff. And we're kind of trying to get everything jump-started again, to be honest with you. But I apologize that you haven't seen any officers, and I'm going to take an active role to just try to make sure that you do. Because they're still supposed to be doing that, and I was probably one of those that you saw 30 years ago riding your neighborhood.
To touch off what Captain Van Osdol was saying for perspective as we talk about the numbers of officers, the patrol division probably had, on average, what, about 40, 45 officers through the past year? Patrol officers working the road. Okay, so you had 45 patrol officers working 24/7 through the year. Those 45 officers were the primary responders to over 71,617 calls for service. So when you start thinking again that the numbers of calls that are going out, a lot of our calls, most of them are two-person type calls as well. You can see how that has an effect into, again, the visible presence which you were seeing. Captain Stiles?
Also, as Captain Van Osdol said, the officers are out there, and they're in the neighborhoods. My detectives are also out there in the neighborhood. You may not see them. They're in a plain vehicle unmarked, checking on neighborhoods, doing follow-up as well. But as Captain Van Osdol said, I will also assist him in making sure that we're visible in the neighborhood, even if it means my detectives getting out there and knocking on doors just to meet people so they know we are there. But as Chief said, call volume is high, but we're doing our best to make sure you know and you're safe.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Winners Church for allowing us to be here. Thank you all for coming out. I know you're busy. I have some pictures, if they'll go ahead and put them up, to show you all what happened in our neighborhood on January the 28th of this year, if she can pull that up. Okay, you see there, that car, that black car there, was hit. You see that tree right there? It prevented a car from going inside the house. Show the other pictures, please. See that car flipped over in our neighborhood, Dunmurray Place.
It's up front too, gentlemen.
It flipped over and it hit that tree and it hit that car. And had not been for that tree, it could have went in someone's home and killed somebody. Show the other pictures. That's them trying to turn it back over on the side. Now, from my understanding, I'm not sure, but the person didn't get no violation, none whatsoever. Okay, show the last one. And there you see your officers there. That's the vehicle, and that's the tree. Now, I ask each and one of you all off the top of your head, how fast you think he was going in that neighborhood? I think he was going more than 25 miles per hour. And all we're asking for is some speed tables. My understanding that Perry already has them. And I understand too that you can make it happen. That right there warranted right there for a speed table in our neighborhood. Because of the fact there's a lot of speeders that's come through. Now they have checked, I ain't gonna say you haven't, they have checked, but at that point in time, during the days when everybody's at work, you ain't gonna have people out there speeding. Mostly it's during the weekend when they're speeding. But that's one concern. Now, another one here, you asked for some suggestions, and this may be far-fetched, but having a pep rally at Northside, I'm from Northside High School, having a pep rally at Northside High School, reporting a crime, learning how to report a crime, not being afraid, encouraging people not to be afraid and to be brave. Now, you also mentioned about cameras. What about having some cameras in the neighborhood? I mean, where you can actually see and get the license plate number of people who speeding through our neighborhood. Because we got a small circle in our neighborhood that people just, I mean, last night, I mean, someone was on a motorcycle just speeding up and down the road. I mean, it's pathetic. And also, I have a question also. What events do the city have coming in the near future? What you have coming up? Now, and that follows up with the other question about Operation Safe Streets. Now, y'all had that done some months ago where you had, I mean, citywide, and it cleaned up. So my question is, I know you can't tell me when, but I want to know if it's going to happen again, hopefully in the near future. And last but not least, workshops about relationship, which you already talked about relationships with the police and how we can be helped. You know, we had talked with the mayor last year, if I'm not mistaken, or the year before last, about task force, but we never got anything from it. I understand she's out of the country right now, but hopefully we can get that, set up a meeting with the mayor, with you, Chief, and the Captain Clay, and let's get together and get this done. I mean, we're willing to help. We're willing to make communications done. You know, we've been having juveniles, teenagers walking through your yard or what have you. That has slowed down things for the officer. And let me tell this one little story. Excuse me. I had locked my keys in my car one time, and I called for help. And I called an officer I knew. And he said, well, I'm in Perry right now. I'll be there about 10, 15 minutes. I said, okay. Well, make a long story short, he came. I got a text message. I got a phone call saying, hey, the car's unlocked. I said, what? Wait a minute. I ain't see you. I was looking for the patrol car. I ain't see you. So I go outside and I look. He's in his regular truck, his personal truck. He came all the way from Perry to Warner Robins to help me out, you know, and he didn't have to do that. So, yes, I know there are some good police officers out there, but unfortunately the ones that's not so good make you all look bad, and that's a shame. But we are willing to help as much as we can.
Thank you, sir. You provide a lot for us to unpack for a response, Steve. So I took my notes, and I'm hoping I can respond to you accordingly. As far as the speed tables go, a lot of that is controlled by DOT based upon the speed limits that are posted within a given neighborhood. So my recollection is correct. It's 20 mile an hour or under can have a speed table, and then speed bumps really fall up into that category point. So our speed zones that we have in the neighborhoods aren't designed or geared around that. And when you look at, I'm not familiar about Perry, but I will say like in Fort Valley around the Common as you go back by the park plat, that is a residential area and they have some speed bumps there. But that's a 10 mile an hour zone, and I'm not sure about if that's a HOA area, if that's private property, or what the nature is onto that. So a lot of the issues about the speed bumps and tables, while it's brought up as a suggestion, isn't necessarily truly the answer you need. If the person is going to speed, they're going to speed, and when the issue is when they hit these tables, it can cause them to lose control of the vehicle equally as well. So the question comes back really down into more of the police presence and enforcement into the area, because ultimately the tables in speed bumps become a challenge even for our fire department, because they got to have certain clearance points for their apparatus not to cause damage to their equipment as well. As far as cameras in the neighborhood, we've partnered with Georgia Tech with the PIN program, and we utilize the Flock camera system as well as with the Houston County Board of Commissioners. They also engaged with Flock for cameras to be positioned without the city. Our partnership with PIN is based off of crime data analysis, and it's an interesting program. We take a lot of time really to explain, but it's off of data collection that will steer a lot of issues about where we will pre-deploy the cameras to try to be predictive into responding to problems that might be in that area. So from that, we do have those, and we do and have used those cameras on other devices, again, in that given area. We've used JMAR, which is a manner of speed detection and study to get an understanding about what the speed is, time of the speed, and the frequency, and within a variation rate of how much we've had in violation. And I do know from the last JMAR study we did, it was identified that we were going to need to be addressing some speed issues up around the Dunmurray point. But that said, we have to allocate the resources and personnel for that to be able to do that. We do have a traffic division, and that's a misnomer. When you say division, you think it's a lot of people. We've got 2 officers that are working traffic enforcement, and we've got 2 supervisors that have been also working into that capacity as well. But anytime we have a serious injury accident, they're the primary investigators to that, and they investigate the serious injury accidents as if it was a serious crime, as what you would expect out of a criminal investigations person. That takes a lot of time as well. As we come to the next question about what events the city is coming up, CVB's got posted out the events. I want to say there's like 26 events that the city's doing through the year, so I got a pretty good memory, but I can't unreel that one off the top of my head. But next Friday, there's going to be a food truck event. It'll either be Friday or Thursday, but I'm believing it's next Thursday. So again, off the city webpage, and that's also being updated amongst the other infrastructure points within the city. We'll be better communicating these events that are going out. But the CVB has been very active, as well as the mayor and council, about creating more events for the community to be engaged with. As I come into your question about safe streets, we will end up doing another safe streets, but we use statistical data to drive us as to what the problem is at the given areas and times, and then our ability to work with different partners in law enforcement, again, to get the numbers up for that presence into those areas. But there will be one coming up, but I'm not going to tell you the time, date, or location. And as far as relationships with law enforcement, we do appreciate it. And again, I think this is a big step for you to see that we are not trying to hide behind a wall or a curtain and avoid the contact within the community. We're here. We want this relationship. We want the communication that's taking place. And we do appreciate that. As far as the task force, the mayor has been very aggressive with a lot of different task forces. So when you make mention of task force, kind of have me at a little bit of a reeled back point. We have a lot of different group points that the mayor is engaging with the community to be part of. So I would say onto that would be, we've done the Blight Task Force, we've done the relationships with the churches. Right. So in one part, what I'm going to say is, when we make mention about engagement, almost every other Monday, twice a month, we have a city council meeting. You're part of the community. That's where a lot of information is exchanged about development plans, where we're going with the future developments with the city as a whole, programs, events, recognitions. There's a lot of recognition to your fellow citizens within the community that are handled at that forum point. And it takes an engaged community to be part of that. So I'd encourage each and every one of you to come to our city council meetings. I'm at every one of them, unless I'm on vacation. And any time a concern's been brought up within that city council chamber, I've taken the time to make personal contact with the person that's raised that concern so we could try to get response to it. An example point to it was a mention of a drug activity problem. In talking with, actually it was on 2 points. And I forwarded that information quickly over to Captain Stiles and Lieutenant Hill. And in both cases, we were able to have an arrest relatively shortly, within about 3 weeks of that notification. So city council does become a community point, a common, if you will, for this engagement between the citizenry, their elected officials. At every pre-council, before the council, you have every department director of the city. So if you had a utility problem, a public works problem, the sources are there for you to talk to. So please, it's an engagement point. We ask for you to be engaged with us and to find these solution points. And that would be an answer to a lot about where the task force matters are that you're asking a question about specifically. It would be a better point or location where we could be more prompt in providing the accurate answer for you onto that, sir. Thank you for that question, though.
Chief and panel, the question is, what measures are there, or what is the police department putting in place to help keep churches safe? Someone just asked that question.
One of the things we do is we have a presentation called Civilian Response to Active Shooter, and we'll come in and we'll show you ways that if you do have a threat come into the church, how to respond to it, how to prepare for it, how to prepare yourself mentally for it. And then also we will come in and do a security check. We'll go around the building, see weak points, things that could be strengthened to target harden your facility. We even come in on a Sunday or whenever you have your services and observe and see if there's things that you could do to make those particular services or events that you have during the week more protected. While I've got this, people ask things that you can do to help us. All right, we talked about Captain Van Osdol talked about the 70,000 calls a year or the 200 calls in a day. We have a service called Teleserve, and what that's designed for is if you have an incident that really does not, you want to make a report, but it doesn't require a police officer being there, okay? Say your child leaves his bicycle out on the front lawn, and you get up the next morning and it's gone. And all you know that it was a blue bike with a yellow banana seat. That's all you know about it. You don't know the serial number, the make. You can call in to Teleserve and they'll make a report for you, and that will save having an officer come out and spend time. Not that it's not important to you, but that officer can do be doing other maybe proactive duties. And like I said, right off the top of my head, theft of bicycle, y'all may have to help me out with some of the other things that Teleserve can do. But a lot of times when you call 911 to report it, they'll say, do you want a police officer or will you be willing to do Teleserve? And everybody, oh no, I got to see a police officer. Well, again, that's taking the guy out of the beat and coming to answer a call where there's really nothing he can do. There's no evidence, there's no suspects, things like that. So I really hope you'll consider when you call us and you need a report that you'll think about doing Teleserve. That would help us out a lot.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, as far as Teleserve is concerned, I'm going to be totally honest with you. We've made a command decision that a lot of times if it is not something that requires an officer to show up and the person calling is not willing to do it over the phone, you may not see a police officer. Because when the report's done over the phone with the Teleserve operator, that report goes to a police supervisor the same as a report done by an officer sitting in a car. Goes through the same vetting process. It'll be seen by the guys or girls or whoever at CID, and if it's something to be investigated, they can take that report and still move forward with it. Unfortunately, the old days of people being used to us responding in person to every single thing, it's just not necessarily possible anymore. We're kind of having to triage some of these things. So it's not that we're not taking the concern seriously, it's just a different method for us to get the information so we can move forward with it. And also, sir, in reference to Dunmurray, if you saw me texting up here earlier, I wasn't trying to be rude or disinterested. I was letting the lieutenant know that's running the squad tonight to put that area on the pass on so the officers will know. Most of my officers do not have speed detection devices, but if that marked unit's in your neighborhood, they will slow down. So we'll try to help y'all out with that a little bit as well.
Thank you for that. We look forward to continue to working with you all with this church, and we do have security presence here. We worked with some of you all in the past, and so thank y'all very much. We're just going to hold them off until y'all get here.
All right.
If you know what I mean.
Good evening, how you doing? My name is Yancey Brown. I appreciate everyone coming out. The question I have is that with the increase of mental health awareness and those type of things, and especially with our teenagers, young children, stuff like that, and dealing going forward, what type of things y'all have in place to, I guess, kind of assist with that and deciphering which call can be more of a violent or versus a mental health issue? Not saying that it's a perfect system or anything at all. Just as a citizen, I'm just kind of concerned what things y'all have in place to deal with y'all come across an issue that has more of a mental health issue versus somebody just being violent, or, you know, what type of things y'all have in place? I'm just curious about it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, sir. As we've seen over the past years, behavioral health, mental health has become a primary concern as we're looking at, when you look at use of force incidents with law enforcement, because a lot of times that's a component factor that triggers into the police officer and citizen contact. So to your question is, what things are in place prior to or in the response to? As the call comes into the 911 center, the 911 center will, based off of the information they receive, make a determination onto the response. And we try to gather as much information as we can as we go to the call or that scene. As we go to it, we have to resolve and maintain the scene into a secure environment in order for even the other first responders to get there, who would be more capable and qualified to be able to provide that care for service that that person might be having when they're in an emotional distress situation. So that is going to be a situation where you're asking me to give an answer for that I can't, because each situation will be different based off of what it's going to dictate for need. If we're having a person that's in a behavioral health crisis, we do try to reach out with either Houston Healthcare into that approach point, if they're not already en route, or through Middle Flint Behavioral Health, where there's the specialists through the crisis response teams that they have elemented with them. So we do take that into consideration, and we do try to take that into the approach to deal with the situation as best we can. But by the point in time that we get called to it, there's a crisis point that's needing to be calmed, in public safety is that concern point. So the situation the officer is faced with is having to resolve that as best they can, keeping it as minimally intrusive as possible and everybody de-escalated and in a calm state. There is training that the officers go to. I want to believe that Perry PD had an article in the newspaper the other day where they were able to say that their department is 100% certified or having attended some training in that case. The Warner Robins Police Department is in the process of doing that, but not to that extent or capability, because we have to maintain our staffing on the road as well. But we do have officers that have been through the crisis intervention training and other training such as that. We have officers that have been trained in peer counseling, several of them. So if we were to have a person that was in crisis and one of the peer counselors might happen to be available, that might be a tool set that we could lean on at that particular point in time. But again, good question, and it is a serious need that we as a society as a whole need to be finding more responsive ways into addressing it. Captain Van Ozel?
Like the chief said, the mental health issue is something we deal with daily. And I would be up here lying to tell you that we know how to always de-escalate something with a person that's in crisis, but we very much try. We can also, like he said, we'll call Middle Flint. There's also a company called Benchmark sometimes we can call. To be honest with you, sometimes if it's a violent situation, they won't come out. And I'm not taking away from them. I understand that's not what they signed up for. But we aren't necessarily the ideal resource to deal with a person having a mental health crisis, to be totally honest with you. And the family sometimes can help us out. Y'all are here, so y'all are concerned. But there are families in this community with members of their family that are mentally ill, and when they become unmanageable, they want us to come solve it for them. I can't fix mental illness. The hospital can't fix mental illness. They can provide treatment, and sometimes they even have to commit people, things like that. But my officers and I are not able to solve it. Our goal is to try to resolve it in the least intrusive manner for everybody, to include the person going through the crisis. Unfortunately, sometimes the person going through the crisis has also done things that is a criminal offense. And we do have options then through state law where we don't necessarily have to prosecute them, but we will take them to the hospital and allow them to speak to mental health professionals rather than criminally charging them. Because if somebody's genuinely going through a mental health crisis, arresting them is not necessarily going to solve the issue. So honestly, we are trying, and we do get training every year. Actually, probably since all the stuff that went down in Ferguson, Missouri, and things like that, there's a lot more mandatory training that we go through, which is quality training and stuff we have to do every year. And some of that is on mental health, dealing with folks that are having mental health issues, and how to de-escalate those situations. So we are proactively trying to make sure our officers are prepared to try to deal with that kind of stuff as best as they can. The problem is, and I'll say it again, we are not the ideal response for a mental health situation, because some of these folks have not had good experiences with law enforcement for whatever reason, and when we show up, it gets worse just by us pulling up. But if we get sent, we have to go. So anybody that's got suggestions to help us solve this, we are more than willing to take any kind of good suggestions on board. But we try to get the mental health professionals involved as quickly as we can, because sometimes they'll come out to the scene and can be a great resource to help us solve it without anybody having to go to jail or you know, people getting the help they need.
To touch back onto that, I also believe that there's a misnomer thinking that law enforcement itself has the authority just to take somebody against their will that's in a behavioral crisis situation and force them into a care facility, and that's not the case. It does take an issue from a licensed clinician to issue an order, a document, to facilitate that lawful movement of that person for that purpose. So a lot of times we're forced to have to deal with that criminal offense in order to get the person ultimately to a point for care for treatment. But again, our perspective point is we're law enforcement, and you know, the behavioral health, the treatment side, that is not where our specialty and experience is at, and that's where we partner in again with the behavioral health specialists that are within the community.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Albert Adams. I have a couple questions. I think somebody said that there is 84,000 people who live here in Warner Robins now, and that you all are patrolling 34 miles. Is that true? Is my miles right?
It's roughly about 82,000 resident population and about 37, 38 square miles.
I got you. So that means I have a mental health problem. Because I'm trying to figure out how could you have 8 officers cover that much ground. I got a mental health problem. Help me with that. Do either one of y'all want to help me with this? If this is true, I'm just dealing with your numbers. If your numbers is right, we have a mental health problem, all of us, because we are about to spend or have spent X amount of billions of dollars doing things that I guess some people find important, but I think one of the most important things to be done in this city and all cities is what you all done. And it's unfortunate that you all have been demonized over the last few years because of the fact of things that happen, what some people have done. But we need police, we need the police presence all the time. We need you all. Because one of the things that I do prison ministry. I do 3 prisons a week. And everybody in the prison has mental health problems. I've come to believe and understand that everybody, each of us, has a mental problem to one degree or another. I dare you to take a look at that. Each of us has our own set of mental problems. There's no such thing as normal. I know y'all not here for no lecture or nothing like that. But since I'm here, I thought I'd make it clear. All of us has problems. Some of us we're able to manage our problem better than others. But we all have mental health problems, for the record. Now, someone brought up the fact, I'm trying to get this. Is that camera called a flock camera or a block camera?
Flock.
Flock with an F.
Flock.
All right. I've been doing my homework. I was over by Seward Circle about a month ago. And you know, I'm sure you all know about the shooting they had over there. And one of my questions was, what would it take to put some flock cameras in that community? Now, right against the wall there, we have the Boys and Girls Club. We got the center someone mentioned earlier. I'm under the impression, there was 2 officers doing a good job when I rode in there. I asked them, there was one flock camera I saw on the way in. None of them could tell me whether or not it was working or not. One. But here we have an area that's filled with, God knows what, all kind of violence. I don't understand why we don't have, at least on every corner, that's where the kids are going to play around this particular area. I would imagine, hope, that we could get some flock cameras in there to at least cover the grounds if somebody hurt some of the children or hurt some of the people that's just playing basketball. You at least know who they are. I would hope we can do something to help with that, if it's possible. Okay? Because what we need help. Now that's why, because I do the prison ministry. About a month ago, January, been a couple of months ago, I had some surgery to do. And I'm going to prison 3 days a week. And the good Lord said, wait a minute, that's good, I like what you're doing, but you need to do something before they get to prison. That's what I'm here for. I'm just trying to find out what can I do to help the community, help our people before they get to prison. Because when you get to prison, I don't know what you think you're headed to, but you're not going to a picnic. So we need to do something. That's why I'm here. I'm here to find out what are we going to do, and I know the answer. You mentioned something. Everybody knows this one. Everybody knows this one, Captain. It takes a what? A village to raise. Hello, somebody. Somebody stole that, but it takes a village to raise a child. And what it's failing is, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's us right here. We are failing because we're not doing our part. It started right here. It started, somebody said every issue is a spiritual issue. I believe this. Every issue we deal with in life is a spiritual issue. So it is a responsibility of, these places like this, for us to do our part, to create a mentor program for the young people. I don't have a young man named, he's an officer. He has created a mentor program. He works in the school system. He's working on a mentor program to help some of the kids having problems. He's working on a program. I'm going to get with him. I'm going to do this. But more of us got to participate. I was at a meeting about a month ago. There was about 50 people in there, 50 veterans. And I brought this up, and somebody said, get a rope. I said, man, we need to do something to help. Somebody said, get a rope. Yeah, get a rope. You're in the wrong place. Most people, shamefully, the village, most people feel I done raised mine, raise yours. And we're not concerned with what's going on, but I'm here to tell you, all right, everybody know, the violence was in Atlanta, it was in Macon, it is here in Warner Robins, and it's going to Perry, in case anybody keep it up. And unless we do something immediately, it's going to knock on your door. And don't wonder what happened. Don't wonder. It's not their fault. They're doing their best. They can make me I'm getting a little bit mental health, trying to figure out how they can manage to cover all this ground with 8 people. Help me somebody. That's a lot of ground to cover. So we must participate. When you see something, say something. Y'all know that's a good one. When you see something, say something. And it's time now. If we don't do something, we do. Our whole community. So I'm here to do my part to help people, because I do know this. The mentor program, and honestly, it's only help for us. You're right. Everybody got a part of it. All of us, each one of us, have a responsibility to do our part. Starting with the kingdom people who, in God's house on Sunday. Everybody in here, y'all talk to me, somebody. We all got a responsibility. It's time for us to do our part. I will do my part, so I'm here to do my part. But we got to start right now. Because if we don't, we're going to be in trouble. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you very much, sir, for your service with the prison ministries. You know, a lot of times people make bad choices, bad decisions in their lives. You know, a lot of it's conditional or situational. But I've always felt that one should be judged not necessarily by the mistake they make, but how you try to recover from that point. And it really, I commend you, sir, for taking that step going into the prison ministry to provide other options, show some guidance and leadership. Thank you. Hard to follow up behind that. So the only question I really got that you had from that for us in that sense to answer is with the flock cameras. And it's a very useful tool, but everything does come with a cost. So as an example point for the cameras that we have in our budget point for us, it's $55,000 a year that we have to allocate into that for, I want to say it's about 50 camera or 45 cameras now. So to increase coverage for it, again, there's going to be the cost and contracts that are associated with it. And the neat thing about the flock camera system is, in a lot of cases, it's not even a law enforcement acquisition point. Private entrepreneurs and enterprises can go ahead and engage with the flock ecosystem, if you will. And then from that, invite others that wish or will be part of that. We've had discussion points with Macon Housing Authority into that regard as far as cameras as well onto it. So there's the ability for it, but the question as to what's the limiting factor to it ultimately is having to manage the finances to manage the acquisition points for the equipment. But again, can't follow up well behind you. And thank you very much for what you're doing with the prison ministry.
I want to give some more questions from some concerned citizens. One they ask is it illegal to sell the crack pipes in the convenience stores? And what is in place, if it is illegal, what is in place to keep them from selling it to our young children?
As far as what you refer to as a crack pipe, if you were to go in any of these stores, what you'll see is there'll be like a little pipe and they'll put a rose in it or something like that. So it's sold as more or less an ornate decoration that is then turned around and used for an illegal purpose. As far as the selling of items to use the illegal narcotics, unfortunately, yes, it is legal to sell them, just like it'd be illegal to sell a bong or any type of, device used to smoke marijuana. And sometimes when they do it, they'll sell it under the guise of something else. Say like, it's not used to smoke marijuana, it's used for hookah, or we smoke tobacco out of it, and that's their way to get around the law. But as far as what you would refer to as a crack pipe specifically, it tends to be more of like I said, it's a decoration is how they sell it. It has a rose or something else they shove in it, and the people just take that out, and that's what they tend to use. So yes, unfortunately, it is legal for them to buy it.
I guess just like the Bible says, inventors of evil.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anyway, we know, Chief, you said that you're short about 19 or 20 officers, right? That's correct. Well, the question is what are you doing to incentivize the hiring and retention of police officers so that our law enforcement operation maintains adequate staffing?
That is, while on appearance a very simple and straightforward question, it is a very complex question. So it's not one that can really be answered in a short answer format. What are we doing? First and foremost, what we can say is we've self-evaluated the situation, what we're at with our staff, and identified culturally what is the culture in our department. We've engaged more with the officers coming from a bottom down, working up compared to a top to bottom. The staff that sits up along the line of the officers that are with me, They've heard me say it so many times that before I make a decision, I do not allow my perception of the situation to dictate really what that reality point is at root level. So again, when we were at the beginning of our forum tonight, we were talking about communication, is we've worked very diligently within the organization to improve our lines of communication within our officers and our staff, both civilian and sworn. We value and recognize each and every person. It's not always about the money. Money does help bring people into your agency, your organization. Intrinsically, we have families who want to raise our families, and be able to provide for them. But if I'm not working in an environment that is conducive to a positive mindset and health, where I feel like I've got potential growth, at least that I'm being respected and recognized as the individual that I am, sooner or later they will start to look elsewhere to seek other employment. And that's not just law enforcement. We can probably look at any of our industry partners where they have these challenges. So that was a big stake point, is when I came in as the interim chief back in October 22, is to do a self-assessment of not only the organization, but looking at myself coming into that role and how it is that we're going to change the culture to make it a more positive environment. Focus on the positives. We're all human. People are going to make mistakes. We address the mistakes, but we don't go about vilifying on the, say, the minor things.
That's right.
We take the time to reward. We work diligently in that regard for peer recognition. Again, the city has done very well to us, as all the city employees, with the pay raises that they have done. We do work on tuition reimbursement in that matter, speak, and there are other avenues and applications within the opportunities within the department for, again, within, if that individual had an interest to go to work K-9, if they had an interest to go to SWAT, we try to identify where their interests are and to try to mentor and develop them through. Again, I'm going to come back to a point that I said earlier. You've got to plant the seed first if you want the tree to grow. Right. And at the executive level, we've taken recognition of it's our responsibility to change that environment. And I've got to say thank you to each and every one of the command staff and the gentlemen that are up here and the women that are part of our department that have embraced that environmental shift. So that's the biggest thing, is create the positive workforce environment and recognize your employees.
I'm sure you're going to be asked that question again in a different way, many times over. So, Warner Robins has been deemed in the past as one of the safest places to live, and now it's said that it's one of the most dangerous places to live. According to Nietzsche, crime and safety. Here's the breakdown. Don't shoot me. I'm just reading it. It says Perry scores an A-, Centerville a B+, Kathleen A+, Barnea A, Byron a B, Warner Robins C-, Fort Valley C+. The question is, what plans are there, if any, are in the works to become the safest city to live in Georgia again?
Solid question. And the best I can tell you is we're being responsive, and this is a step point into that. Right. But again, I'm going to come back to looking at those population centers you're going at. You've got to look at what's the actual population. And when you look at these studies that are done, they take a balance into that. So with the more people we have, unfortunately, if we were to hold at a plateau point of, say, a 10% crime rate, go back to 1991 where you had about 26,000 people, yep, you'd have 2,600 people that would be a victim of that crime, right?
Yeah.
And I don't belittle that number.
Right.
But as soon as we start getting a number now that Houston County as a whole exceeds Bibb County, and Warner Robins is the primary population center, and you start looking at population density, the population density has a direct impact to the nature and volume of crime that's going to occur. So that's an unfortunate byproduct of size of growth, and in part, again, as we've sat here collectively, is it's going to take us all to engage with being part of creating a more healthy environmental community to work with. Mayor and council have been very supportive of the police department, and they've been engaged with us in that regard. When we come to a request for technologies to help address these issues, they've been very forthcoming with that and supportive to it. And again, where we've engaged with a PIN program, which is through Georgia Tech and Flock, using crime data analysis and the camera trending, And again, it's a very complex point to get into. I'm going to try to boil it down. Is from last year, within a 9-month period, to this year in the same 9-month period, through the proper deployment application of flock cameras, they were claiming about a 45 to 50% reduction in crime in those areas which was deployed based off those technology points.
Good.
Now, me personally, I believe there's a lot more that factors into it than just placement of the cameras.
Right.
But those are component parts to it. The neighborhood watch programs, the gentleman from Dunmurray bringing up his concerns that's coming through, those are all intrinsic parts of what's going to help make us a safer community. When we, as a nature, put our head in the sand and ignore what's going on around us, then that crime is going to raise up around you because nobody's paying it any attention. As they say, sunlight's the best disinfectant.
Yeah, Chief, this problem was going on before you got here. So, you know, it's kind of like we're playing catch up. You know, as the city grows, you got to have the police force. As it grows, the police force has to grow. So that's something that we got to, continue to talk to mayor and council about, you know, how we can continue to, you know, be ahead of this thing. Because as we grow, you know, more crime happens. It's unfortunate, but, you know, everybody that's coming to Warner Robins not trying to come to church.
Well, I think one of the important things I'd like to, again, touch base to is encouraging the community to come to the city council meetings. Because while with growth, there's challenges, and not just with the police department. You know, you have it with the utilities department. Think of how many miles, when we say we've got 37 square miles of road, you've got to take into consideration how many miles of pipage that exists to get you fresh water to your house or to get the bad water away from your house. What's it going to take to maintain the sanitation systems, the fire department? You know, city government is a very complex manner, and while we're focused on the police department, the bottom line for any of it is going to be there's a cost associated with it. To you know, get more employees, it's going to cost more money for that. But it's also got to be in a relative perspective to everything as a whole within the community for a balance point. So we're a grown community. Our council is very engaged and aware of it, and they have strategic plans to address these issues. But it is you know, as a grown community, these are going to be grown problems for us.
Absolutely. And it's always, where's the money going to come from to, you know, fund these things? Because if you start saying, let's raise taxes to get more of these police officers, wait a minute now, we don't want to raise no taxes. But, you know, sometimes you got to do certain things in order to get what you think that you need. So that's just a little hint. But anyway, a couple of more questions, and I'm done from this perspective. It appears that the area of town above Russell Parkway does not have as much coverage from all law enforcement in the area. Would precincts help with those places as well as the part of Kathleen and Barnair that lie in the city limits? And so the question is, would precincts help with coverage and response time as the city keeps getting larger? And someone suggested that precincts be put in the, like, you know, the sports centers or whatever like that. So, but you'll elaborate on that for me, Chief?
Absolutely. Several years ago, the department explored doing a precinct-based system, and the fire department out off of Lake Joy was identified as where we would hub out to from that standpoint. Contrary to a lot of belief points is the officers do not sit in a precinct station house waiting for a call and respond out from that. So though you have a location point that you would identify as a precinct, it doesn't necessarily equate to you're going to have more presence of law enforcement there. Right. We tried to explore that with Dolores Tolliver Park with having a precinct area dedicated for us there. But based out of the call volume and the amount of times, as again, we said 71,000 plus calls last year. Good days, we've had a couple weeks ago, or days ago, was 9 officers. Those are solid numbers for us. But they don't have time to sit into the precinct house in and of itself. So what we've done is, years ago, the city was broke down into 7 geographic zones, beat zones, and the officers tried to hub themselves into their assigned zone area for responsiveness. So the answer is ultimately we've got to increase our staff and strength. beyond what we're currently at.
Right.
But I'm going to say a reality point is not just the police department. That's going to be probably every department within the city with the workloads that we have, with the growth that we have.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the fire department has, you know, different areas where they cover, you know, same thing's going to happen with all of the other areas that we have as it grow. You know, take you, you know, a whole lot of time to get from one side to the other. When you have a place here, they can get there quicker. It's just like time response.
But the one thing I do want to touch back onto where you made mention about that is we are very fortunate in Houston County. I'm going to say this again. We are very fortunate in Houston County that you have the mutual aid agreements that exist between, as you were just talking about with the fire department. Warner Robins Fire supports Perry, they support Houston County, they support Centerville Fire. Within the law enforcement capacities, all your law enforcement between Centerville, Warner Robins, Perry, and Houston County, we cross-support each other. So when we're running into shortage points, you know, the other night when we had a SWAT call out, you know, that literally tapped out the entire patrol squad to be resolving the situations that they had. And it's through these partnerships with our partners, if you will, that we're still able within the county as a whole to be able to provide quality law enforcement service. So at this point, I'd like to as well say thank you to our collective partners as well.
That's good. That's good. Now, with technology advancing so quickly, have you seen the benefits to having the cameras, and do you have drones? Or do you believe in the drones, or do you think you need drones? Explain.
Have the cameras had a benefit? Wow. I can tell you an example point of 2 years ago, on a January evening, we had officers about 2 o'clock in the morning respond to Randall Heights Apartments in reference to a young girl that was 8 years of age that was shot. Wow. The officers that got on scene found out there were absolutely no witnesses to it. None. They looked in the immediate area and they see a string of shell casings in the road, and they couldn't make a determination if it was somebody that was walking parallel to the road that took the shots or if it was a vehicle. And through our utilization of the flock camera system, in reviewing it, they were able to determine that a car entered into that area, but prior to getting into that area at 2 in the morning, it cut their lights off.
Wow.
So the officers took the particular attention and time to get the information best they could from the vehicle, put a lookout on the vehicle, and several hours later that morning, they were able to locate that vehicle. In a true story to this point, in 24 hours, we had 4 juveniles that were in custody for that aggravated assault from that issue. So the technology does have a benefit. It is not a technology, though, that is used in a modern of society. We're not a minority report society with our systems. So it takes the incident to occur in that area, and we'll backlog through to see what the videos might yield off the flock cameras. And then as we've come into partnership with FUSIS, within the ability within the community, for those that wish to partner up with us as a registered member, when we have a criminal incident that occurs in the community, we'll draw a geofenced area, basically draw a blob around that area that we're looking for information on, and anybody that's registered with us would receive an email stating that we're looking for any video that might relate to the incident that occurred during this time. So they would look at their video, and if they had anything that was a benefit for us, they can upload that to us directly and anonymously in that fashion to provide some information. And that has been very key in several of our investigations. I'll pass that on to Lieutenant Clark so he can further elaborate.
So as far as technology goes, especially with the flock cameras, since we've had them a little bit longer, they've been instrumental in several cases. I can think of at least 3 homicides where it was a key piece of evidence for us, and being able to solve that crime and take people into custody. As far as FUSIS as well, while that's still in the stages of building up where the cameras are and things like that, that has also helped us, especially with the business cameras. Again, like he was saying, there was another shooting a few months ago over around Camellia Circle area, and multiple shell casings located. A couple of people were hit and injured. Thankfully, they survived. But having cameras on some of the local businesses there, we could immediately pull up and start searching through the footage, and turned out the suspects just beforehand had pulled into a parking lot of that same business and were getting assault rifles out of their trunk to go do what they were about to do. So there is a huge benefit as far as the criminal investigative division for my detectives to be able to have instant access to not only video but the flock camera system and things like that.
I'm firsthand. We got cameras everywhere around here, and we know that we've caught some people with our cameras. So I know it's a benefit to us to have cameras.
It is, and I'm going to couple back onto the question of technologies with drones and forward that to Captain Edwards, because it is a program we're engaged with, and he's our subject matter expert onto that.
Oh, thank you, sir. Well, as far as the drones goes with technology, we are in the forefront of that. We have some challenging things here in the city of Warner Robins because we're right next door to the Air Force Base. Would anybody think that's restricted airspace?
Yes.
It is very controlled airspace. So we've had to work really in conjunction with the FAA and develop partnerships and things of that nature, and we've overcome it. So the Warner Robins Police Department does have an active drone program. We have 7 drones that are available to us. They have thermal capability, video image capability. We can stream. They're a tremendous asset for command and control of events, large events, the IDC event, the Christmas parade, things of that nature. But they also provide coverage for responses. So if we have a missing endangered person, we have a vehicle chase, we have some people, you know, that have been running on foot, or officers had chased them, or we have people in the area, we can put a drone up and have the bird's eye view. I'm a person that's tactical in nature, so we always own the high ground. Does that make sense to everybody? We always own the high ground so we can see everything. But that program now, all of our people who are in the program now are licensed through the FAA with a Part 107. We are covered under a COA through the FAA, which is Certificate of Authorization. And I just spoke with the chief the other day about it's budget time. So, you know, I come with lots of paperwork and requests as far as blending. I believe with the technology, it helps us to create force multipliers and helps us do our job more efficiently with what we currently have. Yeah. So we just put in the budget for several Matrice platforms. These are commercial grade that allow us to move toward what we call the drone first responder program. The drone first responder program is that when a call goes out, that there's a drone that flies before the officer gets there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we actually have a drone officer, a drone pilot, or an unmanned aerial system, UAS, pilot, who remotely takes this thing, and when the call comes out, and they start with, you know, different types of calls, and when that call comes out, like it's a burglary in progress, or you have a fight, or you have a suspicious person, and things of that nature, the drone can take off and go there first. And then that can be streamed directly to all the police officers, and they can see that as they're coming up. And it provides another level of protection for the community. It can, it's not being used as a big brother. We don't do that. We only respond to incidents, and that is very restricted by the FAA, by the way. You cannot just fly drones over certain things. There's so many things we have to get done with that. But we went and partnered up with Brookhaven Police Department out of the metro area, and they have a drone first responder program, only one in the state. And it's been very good for them to have that. And that's where we're moving towards. So yes, we do have drones. They are deployed pretty frequently. I want to think all of them are on your patrol, right? So all of our drone pilots are currently assigned to the uniform division, and they are with them. And then they deploy out. All they do after request a drone operator, and a spotter will go with them, and then they'll put it up and go from there. So yeah, drones have been a big thing, and I think they're going to be a big thing for the future of this agency and city.
You like my media people. You want money for toys so you can. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. They always got that. We need some more money. We need more money. All right. But anyway, I got two questions that should be, because I'm going to skip. We got about 10 more, but I won't do that. Does Warner Robins have a juvenile curfew? If so, what is the age limit?
The juvenile curfew is under the age of 17, and then it's from 11 to 5 on Monday through Friday, and then on the weekend it's 12 to 5. We are working with our partners in the city attorney's office to bring our code, our ordinance, into a parity point with what Centerville has adjusted with, because again, they're our community partners and we border with each other. So there will be a commonality of that. And again, a commonality of approach with dealing with curfew violations. Yeah. Traditionally in the past, the efforts have been hold the child accountable for the curfew violation. It's in the process points where we're shifting it to when there's the curfew violation involving the juvenile, it's going to be the parent that's going to be the accountable party to it. So parents have got to start taking some ownership and responsibility, again, being parents. And when there's an issue with their child, addressing the child issue at that time. But that is the curfew in the age limits that we're dealing with.
What is it, a time limit, time that they have to curfew, or?
Right. So again, when you deal with basically Monday through Thursday, it's the 11 to 5 in the morning.
Okay.
And then on the weekend, Friday night to Saturday morning, it would be till midnight.
And I think why they asked that question is a reference to the shooting of the 14-year-old
right.
That happened.
So with that, I'm going to say that I want to pay recognition to Pastor Austin, who's here. She came up from Florida for this. It's very personal to me. I was out there that night, and I was with a family and had to provide that information to them at the hospital. Youth violence is on the uptick, and you're going to hear a lot from us talking about with the parents or the guardians. And we know they're doing what they can a lot of times. But there's also that interest of what do we do with our child if we see them in possession of something they shouldn't have. Intrinsically, from the gentleman that we were talking back here in the back, prison's not the place you necessarily want your child to go, because they don't come out necessarily any better when they went in, right?
That's right.
So we understand that parents have these concerns of how do I resolve this problem? Because these guns these children have just don't materialize. It's not like the child just walked out, saw a gun sitting in a ditch and said, I'm going to pick it up and do something with it. These children have these guns. These children are getting a hold of guns that have Glock switches that turn the gun into a fully automatic weapon. We're working with our federal partners at a lot of levels too, both at all spectrums, to help try to address these issues. But it takes the parent when they're at their house and they see the child and they've got a firearm that's not the household's gun. And if it was the household's gun, the child has it and they're not supposed to, the parent needs to be a parent and resolve that matter.
That's right.
But especially if it's one that's not theirs, they need to take the time to secure it and address that. Because if they don't, we're going to have these unfortunate incidents. I mean, it is horrific. It was heartbreaking, heart-wrenching for me personally. I've been policing over 30 years, and each one of us have been up here a long time. And we've all had to make those hard notifications to family members. So one of the things, again, with Ms. Pastor Austin, who's my sister, thank you, ma'am, we bounce things off each other. So in tragedy, again, positives can come out. And again, we'll say it again. We're going to plant the seed and grow a tree. So in the discussion points we've had, was what's a constructive way to get some of these firearms up off the street that these kids are getting into possession to? And from the standpoint, we also understand from law enforcement, 90% of these guns these kids have are reported stolen. Really, the other 10%, the person just couldn't provide the serial number so it could get reported in. Very rarely is it a lawfully owned firearm that's been involved in these crimes. So how do you address this matter of trying to get the firearms off the street in a manner in which the parents aren't feeling like I'm placing my child potentially in greater jeopardy and other issues? And again, we discussed this matter point, and we're looking at doing, I'm going to steal your line, lay it down. Project Lay It Down. And it's going to be established around that there will be an anonymous point in time. We'll set up the time, date, location, and if there is a parent, an adult, responsible party that realize they've got a firearm that just shouldn't be, if you will, that they have a means to get rid of it in a proper fashion. Again, surrender it to us, and at which point in time we can at least try to potentially get that weapon, a piece of property, back to its rightful owner. But if for nothing else, you know that weapon is no longer out on the street to be used in a horrific manner. We're very pro Second Amendment within the police department, so it's not a program or concept to disarm society. That's not the case. It's a means to try to get these guns that don't need to be on the street into a safe point location, so we can try to have a proactive approach to reducing this gun violence. And
Thank
again,
you, Chief.
Pastor Austin.
I wanted to say that we are, we're in the process of having parent training once a quarter. I think, a lot of times we're trying to talk to the children, but we need to start talking to the parents. So we need some parent training. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
If I could add one thing to piggyback on the chief for, prior to my current position, I did almost 6 years as a patrol sergeant. And another issue is kind of a two-pronged thing. It's what he said, but in addition to that, while we are what I would consider to be a pro-gun state, there should be responsible gun ownership. I would say on a normal, throughout a normal patrol year, you would be surprised how many people had their guns stolen because they leave them sitting in a car and leaving their cars unlocked for people just to walk up, open up a door, and these kids, I would say at least 90 to, if not 95% of all the entered autos we have involve the youths that are out at night, walking around with backpacks, pulling on door handles. That's typically more of just statistically a younger age crime, and they will go away with guns. I mean, I can remember one case where one guy had 5 guns in his car because he just got back from the gun range, left them in there, leaves them unlocked. The kid walks by, pulls the handle, pulls them out. So I guess maybe a better message, unfortunately, we don't really have a law that addresses whether or not they need to be more responsible in that aspect. But just more of a message to the community, make sure all your valuables are taken out of the car. Make sure your guns are out of your car. Make sure if you have guns in your house and you're not at your house, have them locked up in a secure way, whether it be a little mini safe, something like that. So that way these kids, if they do commit the crimes, burglarizing your house or getting into your car, we're not just making it as easy as possible for them to get their hands on them, which unfortunately has become not the norm, but probably more so than I would feel comfortable with, and all the other people up here.
Thank you. It's close to our time to close. I'm going to close it with one last question that they have here, number 10. Do you think that the racial makeup of a community's police department should be similar to the racial makeup of the community it serves, or is it unnecessary?
So, with your question, we do believe the department should, as best can be reflected to the community it serves. With that, you've got the challenges, though, of getting the community to get engaged and choosing that for a vocation to come into. So there's a lot of responsibility in being a police officer, and there's a lot of requirements that the state requires out of that. And if you were to sit there and say you'll make no job hiring decisions based off of I'm not getting a certain group set one way or the other, then you're going to maintain yourself in a shortage of staff.
Absolutely.
So it takes getting quality and qualified people to put in for the department. What I'm thumbing through is basically a point I'm trying to get to about who we are and our makeup for the department, to kind of give you an idea of we're not just saying it, we're doing it. And we were talking about it earlier as far as demographics within our department. Years ago, when we started, our agency probably was about an 8% female to male ratio. Now we're at 30%. So there's active efforts into, again, gender and demographics to it. I'll pull the number here for you in a minute. I'm being somewhat challenged. But our value points that we have in the makeup is reflective, get more reflective into the community of which we are serving. We have a large community of Latinos and Asians as well. And what's unique about Warner Robins when you look at the census report is the 2020 census had our population break out at about 48% Caucasian, I want to say 43% black, left 7% as basically other and Asian. But then when they broke it down to focusing more onto the Latino community, it broke the black to white ratio probably closer than anywhere I've ever seen to a 50-50 balance point within our community. So we're very diverse as a community and not as out of balance as what may have been thought before. But I found the page I was looking for. Our percentage is 70% male, 30% female.
Okay.
The percentage of staff that is white is 74%. The percentage of staff that is black is 20.4%. 3% is Latino, and 2.4% is Asian. So it was an interesting point that when we were figuring this out for this year, it was a question mark that I had for myself of, again, as the chief, who are we as an organization? And what is the culture that we are building? And I've got to give a lot of credit to the past administration because Chief Wagner did a lot in regards to recognizing that and trying to bring in that change and to, again, focus on to our recruitment into a more balanced point.
Chief, I'm glad you didn't dodge that question. You answered it, and you see what's happening, and my hat's off to you. Thank you all for not running from any question tonight. You didn't dodge anything. You kind of met it head on. So I think we need more of these. Of course, you got 3 more. I don't know where they're going to be or whatever, but we're glad that we're the first one. First stop here at the Winning Church. So no one else have any other questions? Oh, you do? Okay.
Hi, my name is Patricia Walker. My daughter, DeAndre Dotson, she was shot at Crew Lounge on last Friday morning. Yes. And she was shot in her chest twice. And it is hard for us to deal with it. It hurts, and I am angry. The shooter is in jail where she should be. Also, her uncle that is in prison threatened my daughter online. And I did go down to the police department and I made a complaint with Detective Nix and he made a report on it. He actually told her to not make a report, to not talk to the police, and to not take the stand, which is very hurtful for me as a mother. 2 gunshot wounds to her chest, 27 years old. And I have one question. What's going on with Crew Lounge? What y'all gonna do? What's going on with the license? What's going on with the security license? We are hearing all kind of things online about their license being pulled for security that night. I need some explanations. And someone tell me something, please. Thank you. And I thank y'all guys. I really do appreciate y'all.
Thank you, ma'am. And again, we take that situation very seriously. And what I can tell you is this. Prior to that night, we have been working that as a problem set. We have gotten with our city attorney prior to that and have prepared a package set to be brought forth through city council to have their business license revoked. So that was in the motion already. That evening when I went out, well, let me back up. Even beyond just that, I look at things from a strategic standpoint, is have a plan B and a plan C. So my follow-up plans onto that is, again, from talking with the mayor and different members of council, is the city development for that area as they look to expand out of armed forces way down to the south side along that way. There's districting that they're looking to do, but that's down the road. What are we doing to fix the problem now? So again, it was working with the city attorney's office, and that's coming forth. And as well, we've received notes from the Secretary of State's office in regards to an issue about a member that they had working security for them that was working unlicensed. We did not pull his license. The gentleman was unlicensed. Now, what did we do? I presented that information to Lieutenant Clark so they could do a proper investigation point. And ultimately, from that investigation, through the notice of the Secretary of State's office, we drew a warrant for 5 counts of operating as an unlicensed security agent. That night of the shooting, the officers went because we knew he would be there, and they served him that warrant and arrested him, and he received his 6th violation for operating without a license. The business owner has a responsibility to make sure in that particular case, if he's hiring security, that they're licensed. I'll just leave that on to them. So the night of the shooting, I personally went out there onto it because it's been personal to me. Anytime any of our citizens get shot and injured, it's very personal to me. And if I'm in town and able, I will go to those scenes. Prior to that, again, I had contact with the Houston County District Attorney's Office as far as option points that are available to us through Superior Court. It's a little bit more challenging. What I can tell you is this afternoon, just 2 days after bringing it to the DA's attention to wanting the issue brought up as far as that being drawn as a nuisance through the Superior Court of Houston County, they had the complaint drawn up, and I signed the affidavit today for them. So that will be going before Superior Court to go ahead and work on having their license addressed as that business location there as well. So we have taken a very strategic approach to it. We will deal with it from the business license on the city. That will still move forward. But we'll also be moving forward with Superior Court because that creates a separate line of action points to resolve that situation as well, to be a more permanent fix to that problem so we stop having the homicides, the multiple shootings, fights, firearms discharges down there. It is a nuisance. We're putting an end to it. And I'm very apologetic that your daughter was a victim to such a matter as that. But again, I'm going to come back to it. You have bad actors that got a hold of those firearms and chose to act out the way they did. And that becomes an educational point that we as adults and parents have got to start teaching our children a better way of communicating and resolving conflict than resorting to violence. But I hope I've answered your question, ma'am.
All right, I think that's a wrap for tonight. Y'all can stand and stretch now. We're going home. Yes. We're going to close out in prayer. We want to thank one of our council members being here tonight. I'm looking around to see if I've seen any more. But we thank God for Derek Mack being here with us tonight. I don't see any other. Do you see any other council here? And anybody from the mayor's office? All right. Want to recognize everybody. We thank God for the Warner Robins, the police department. Come on, y'all, give it up. This is good. This is good. So let's close out with a quick word of prayer. I will not be long in my benediction. All right? Father, thank you. Amen. Let's go.
On your way out, there'll be 2 clipboards with a QR code on